Hey guys, how are you all doing? Scaryel here, and we're back with another Throne and Liberty video. This time, this video is going to be more of a chat, okay? I really want to make these kinds of videos more often, but this one's more of a conversation. So I'll let you know right away that like whatever's showing on the screen is just an illustration of what I might be talking about. But overall, this is more of it's like a Scaryel talk, you know? Just like Tico talks here, it's a Scaryel talk, all right? In this type of video, we're going to talk about the state of the game, how the game is doing, the long-term future of Throne and Liberty, and so on. So, I have a lot of topics to cover in this kind of video, but today, specifically, we're going to be talking about the situation with GVGs, all right? About the current game meta for the 48 versus 48, right? Which is the world boss fights, you know? The GVGs themselves, the Boomstones and Riftstones, and even the battles for Archibos disputes in the open world, okay? So this is a video that might require a bit of your attention when it comes to listening, alright? Yeah, but let's talk here so we can understand why Throne and Liberty currently has this meta, right? Which is all about tanks and healers and curses, right? Why are the DPS classes so weak in the meta overall? Classes like bow and dagger, which have dropped out of the meta, and bow and staff, which are also really weak right now. Yeah, and builds with spear, right? Spear and dagger, or even spear and greatsword, you know. But anyway, everything I'm gonna say here isn't exactly, 100% certain, right? It's just my perspective and the perspective of some players from the competitive scene. Of course, that's not everyone, okay? This might not reflect your own experience in the game, especially if you're a more casual player or if you don't really play much in the 48 versus 48 competitive scene. But overall, it's a bit of the perception that's causing some players from the competitive scene to quit the game, all right? Yeah, but once again, everything I'm saying here is just my opinion based on some situations I've experienced. It might not reflect the full reality of the game. So without further ado, my name is Scaryel, and this is a video dedicated to the game Throne and Liberty. I hope you enjoy what we're going to cover in this video. If you enjoy it, leave a like, comment your thoughts, and share it with your friends so they can better understand the game's scene, alright? So let's get to this clip. What you're seeing here in the background, guys, is a GVG that took place a few days ago, right? This happened at the beginning, actually at the end of last month on April 28th, when this GVG took place against the guild we call the Machadinho Guild, right? This is one of the guilds, I believe that even today it's the top one guild on one of the game's servers. I think it's on the Starlight server, but I could be mistaken, okay? And this guild, as far as I remember, is Gaia's guild, right? He's a major player in the game's competitive scene. And here we're facing the world boss Dagon, okay? This world boss Dagon is in the 48 versus 48 content, right? So it's not in the open world like it used to be. And as you can see, he's a type of boss that requires some movement related to the high ground, right? After all, you'll be able to deal more damage to the boss with this kind of attack, right? That's a mechanic of the boss, right? So what we're going to be covering here in this video, folks, as I mentioned, is talking about this competitive scenario of tanks and healers in the 48 versus 48 competitive mode. Yeah, a lot of people don't face this kind of content, right? Exactly because they're not part of a competitive guild or something like that. But for competitive guilds, this is usually what we're up against, what we're facing in the guild format bosses in the game. And well, the game has changed a lot, that's for sure. We understand that there are different metas, right? At the beginning of the game, in T1, we had the Liberator meta, right? Which was one of the only classes that had a lot of area damage and a ranged area damage that could, kill a lot of people. Right after that came the Spear and Dagger meta, right? Yeah, after all, almost no one had built melee evasion at that time. And so based on that, right, either melee evasion or melee endurance, based on that, Spear and Dagger became really strong, right? They could deal a lot of damage with little accuracy, So with a low chance to hit, right? Even so, it could still deal damage, but once again, there was the problem in large-scale scenarios, right? So competitive scenarios were really good for Spear and Dagger. People would group up and you could deal some pretty nice damage, but particularly now the meta for fights like this is tanks and healers. So notice how long, for example, the tank being shown there, Parzival, my dear godfather, my wedding godfather, holds out. Just imagine, look at how long he can withstand the damage. And also notice how long the enemy guild manages to stay alive. We're comboing, engaging in combat, right? Managing cooldowns and all that, it's still extremely difficult to kill the enemies. Yeah, a lot of times we die, of course, that's normal. But notice that here on April 28th, the guild I play with, which is Bridge Banners, still hadn't done a full rotation to adapt to this meta. So as you can see, Scaryel up there in the top corner was playing with Spear and Dagger. Our friend Rules was playing with Staff and Bow, and so was our friend Zap, right? He was playing with Spear and Greatsword. All these names I mentioned to you, the three of us, me, Rules, and Zap, we all switched classes. We switched classes not because, oh, I want to have fun with a new class, I want to try out a new class. No, quite the opposite. Here we switched classes almost solely and exclusively to adapt to this competitive environment. This is a very serious problem with the game because it's forcing players, if they want to do this kind of content, to switch to this build. To switch to more resilient builds, builds with triple evasion, builds that are either for damage or for either for tanking or for killing tanks and healers. So it's going to be very easy for you to spot in a fight like this what we call a praguinha, right? That's the player who's going to be using either a wand and staff or a wand and dagger, applying curses to our tanks and healers, right? Today, this is almost one of the only ways to eliminate tanks and healers in this kind of PvP content scenario in the game. So I had to switch to wand and dagger. I had to spend endless resources that I didn't like, wouldn't have wanted to spend. So, hey, Scaryel, but isn't it hypocritical of you to say that, like, the game is forcing you? On the contrary, I don't even need to make this switch. I don't want to make this switch, and that's fine. But once again, this video, it's talking about this PvP content scenario. So this is very complicated because, like it or not, the game's competitive PvP scene is an active one, and it's a scene that somewhat shapes the direction of the game in the long run. Of course, you might have different opinions than mine. Once again, this is just my opinion. But like it or not, man, this really frustrates competitive players because we're stuck in a meta where nobody dies. Look at this. Look at how long the people in the meta are surviving. Look at how long tanks and healers are lasting. As a DPS in this scenario, I'm constantly trying to target one of their DPS because I know we're not going to be able to kill the tanks and healers. It's an endless rotation of cooldowns happening. So we have the groups being formed, each group, right? Here there are 8 groups from each guild, and each of these groups has at least 2 tanks and 2 healers. Of course, for the guilds that are playing within the meta. So it's extremely complicated to play in a scenario like this because nobody dies. We don't have a full wipe here, you know? Notice how much time has passed. It's been almost 10 minutes that I've been talking here, and that's 10 minutes where nobody dies, man. So this is extremely complicated because you might think, oh no, but what about the boss's health, Scaryel? It will only go down if there's DPS attacking it. No, quite the opposite. In one of the latest game updates, a system was introduced where the boss's health after 20 minutes of combat automatically decreases until the end of the GA, until the end of the match. So consequently, the guilds that have more tanks and healers, which are the guilds that will stay alive the longest, will always be the ones contributing to the bosses. And even if they don't have enough damage to kill it, at some point the boss will die. So by maintaining a high contribution, it really becomes a battle of who can last the longest in a fight. I don't know if you were aware of this kind of scenario in the game that I'm presenting to you here, but this is the current competitive scene of 48 versus 48. And why is this so harmful? After all, as I mentioned, people are starting to switch classes, and those who don't want to switch are getting frustrated with the game. And that's fine, it's just the meta. Possibly this meta will be replaced. The company has already mentioned, right, that it intends to change the endurance and evasion system, right, which are the 2 defensive layers of the game most used by most people. So the company has already pointed this out. Now, in the May roadmap over in Korea, there is a planned adjustment to these systems, but we don't know what exactly this will involve. So it could be that this is the change I mentioned, right? It might be about endurance and evasion, about how endurance and evasion work, but it might not be. So the question that remains is, how much longer will this kind of competitive scenario where tanks and healers are almost mandatory and essential continue? How many players will the company have to lose before realizing that a change in this regard is necessary? It's unbearable, man. It's unbearable. I don't intend to stop playing. No, quite the opposite. I can see a big future ahead for Trona and Liberty, but I have no doubt that the people playing in this current scenario, there's just no way to enjoy this kind of content. Look at this, man. No one dies. How are you as a DPS supposed to kill anyone in this scenario? As soon as a tank's defensive buff runs out, another one comes in. As soon as the shield or the healer's healing buff ends, another one takes its place. So no one dies, man. Look at the fight. It's completely dominated by tanks and healers. It's extremely frustrating. Oh, Scaryel, are you whining? Man, you're complaining too much. I don't know what. Just adapt and that's it. I adapted, man. I adapted. I'm playing with Wand and Dagger and my god, man, it's a horrible, horrible class. I'm only playing with this thing because I need to kill healers and tanks. So yeah, man, it's extremely annoying, a class that runs out of mana almost all the time. Notice in my group there, man, the only ones who die are the DPSs. The tanks and healers don't die, man. They just don't die. So man, it's extremely unbearable. It's like, for example, you have to pick a pest class, like the one I'm talking about, Wand and Dagger or Wand and Staff. Use 2 or 3 combos and then you're out of mana. It's like you use a combo that's literally going to boost the enemy team, but how can you perfectly boost the enemy team when those guys have infinite shield rotations and tons of healers? Oh, Scaryel, but that's just team strategy. It's the guild strategy and all that. I agree, it's strategy, and as you can see here, the strategy is being attempted. There's a push to get people off the high ground. There's cooldown rotation. There's cooldowns. You hit the boss, try to take the high ground, then go back to the boss. All of that is happening, but notice how the fight is 50-50. So the guilds that are better prepared or more suited for the competitive scene sometimes just steamroll the guilds that aren't ready for it. So this can even be frustrating for a guild that wants to get into the competitive scene, wants to put together a team of 48 people to be able to do this kind of content. But it's just not going to happen, man. It's not going to happen. Any team that's even halfway decently built will beat any other team that's not following the meta, just because that other guild is in the meta. We have cases within the guild, for example, and this isn't an isolated case, of people with 2 Arc Boys, 3 Arc Boys, 1 of, Belondier's Staff, Tevent's Bow, Tevent's Dagger having to switch to tank. How is that possible, man? How can it be that just to stay in the competitive scene, you have to make such an abrupt rotation like that? It's fine for there to be a meta. It's fine to want to adapt to the meta to be in the competitive scene. I'm not criticizing that aspect. I'm just criticizing that this particular meta, where there are basically only 2 classes present in the game, which are tank and healer. Oh, Scaryel, but there's crossbow and sword and shield. Yes, I agree. There's also greatsword and spear, which are strong too. There's this new build that came up, right? Wand and staff, wand and dagger, but come on guys, that's not good. Look at this, man. The whole fight goes on without anyone dying. The tank you're seeing there has been alive since the start of the match. So like, okay, in this fight here, we have some DPS. If only they were dying, me for example, and so on, but look at the number of assists. The tank who's been on screen since the start of the match has 2 assists, just 2 assists. So man, it's really frustrating to see the log of people dying on the left. Only the DPS are dying, but there are just 1, 2, 3 DPS in a full team within the meta. So like, man, it's really frustrating to play in this meta, and I urgently hope that Amazon does something about it. After all, this discourages new players from wanting to play this kind of content, and it also frustrates players who have been playing for a long time from playing for this. Once again, this is not an isolated case. This isn't just the account of one person who's frustrated with this kind of content. This is the account of many people within the competitive scene. The guild and, well, a good number of guilds are, disbanding or stopping playing because, man, we're not talking here about switching just because, oh, I want to have fun with a different class. Oh, the DPS class is strong. I'm not complaining after all, whether I like it or not in tier 1, right? I played as Liberator at the start of the game from the very beginning. When the spear was released, I already wanted to switch, and I did switch, and whether I like it or not, both weapons I played with, right, Liberator and Shadow Dancer, were in the meta. The point isn't, oh my god, Scaryel is just complaining because the meta is different now, it's a boring meta. It's not just that, guys. It's really about trying to look at the bigger picture. All right, players come and go, players stop playing for all sorts of reasons, and there are countless other problems in the game. I totally get that. And that's also going to be one of the reasons why we'll be discussing this kind of thing in a future video in this same format. But what I wanted to make clear to you here for you to think about, and if necessary, even demand it, right, from your guild, or actually not your guild, but from the company, right, Amazon together with NCSoft, is, man, do you really enjoy seeing this kind of competitive scene here? I know that most of the people who follow me here on the channel aren't actually involved in the competitive scene, but I wonder, you who are going to be playing the game in the long run, do you see yourself at some point joining this competitive scene? And if so, would you like to be playing only with this particular type of class? Would you maybe like to be playing this kind of content where nobody dies, there are only tanks, only healers, and it just becomes an endless rotation of people just going on and on? We're talking about a world boss where the respawn is extremely fast, so sometimes it takes us 2 minutes, a minute and a half to kill someone, and in 15 seconds that person is already back, making a huge impact inside the boss pit and consequently in the fight, right? So, man, Amazon, this is a request. Of course, we Brazilians don't really have that much impact on the core content of the game, but change it, you know? Change it, do something about it, because the way it is now, it's complicated. So, guys, I'd like to thank everyone who stayed until the end. If you like this kind of video, let me know in the comments, all right? Leave a like, share it with your friend who's looking to get into the competitive scene, share it with your guild so they can try to understand, check this out, and plan better if needed, right? If they want to adapt to the meta, here it is. The tank healer and Praginha meta, right? So let me know what you think, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, see you, I'm out.